ask a few questions on the practical side of her proposals. For example, she mentioned, Mr. President, that the local government units should be impressed into the campaign to help prevent global warming and probably plant so many trees all over the nation. One of the things that I would like to suggest, Mr. President, to Her Honor, is if she could actually undertake the writing of a memorandum of agreement between, for example, Luntiang Pilipinas
And Cagayan de Oro.
and not only that, but the League of Governors, the League of
Very
Mayors,
good suggestion, Mr. President.
well, preferably the League of City and Municipal Mayors, because what I have in mind is to suggest that every time any person applies for a building permit, that he or she should be required to plant a tree.
That's great, Mr. President.
You know, in the lot where the building is supposed to be constructed. Well, I know that the immediate knee-jerk reaction would be, well, you know, the trees can cause the cement to crack. But there are all kinds of trees, Mr. President, that can be adapted to the requirements, let us say, of a particular lot. But the idea of having, you might say, individual applicants for building permits to plant a tree is, to my mind, a very practical solution that or proposal that will compel you know, the applicant to plant a tree where it counts most, right in his own backyard, as it were, Mr. President.
Done, Mr. President. That's a great idea, both for the League of Municipalities and League of Cities, Mr. President, because this may not reforest the whole nation, but it will send a strong signal to the people in that city or municipality that the mayor or the LGU head in that municipality or city understands and wants to devote, you know, his time to this advocacy. I will do that ASAP, Mr. President.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. And let me just put into the record that there are already studies in the United States, for example, where areas, for example, that are shaded by trees require less electricity to keep cool for the summer, for example, or to keep warm even during the winter time. So meaning to say, Mr. President, the presence of trees around let us say, a subdivision cannot but be beneficial for the residents of that area, Mr. President.
That is true, Mr. President. In fact, if you will recall, when we were having the budget deliberations last December, these were questions which we raised before the Public Works and Highways Department.
Right.
And they claimed that they had urban reforestation budgets in the DPWH. And again, in the confirmation of Secretary Abdani in the Commission on Appointments, he gave me a memorandum which he issued based on the query we made, where all highways done by the Public Works Department would have to plant trees on the roadsides. So
Right.
there is an effort. We just have to see whether it's actually implemented on the ground.
Yes, that was supposed to be the second part of my suggestion, that one way by which we can get this idea, you know, actually implemented would be a kind of understanding between the group that you represent espousing the greening of the
It doesn't
country.
even have to be the group of this representation, Mr. President. It could be a bigger group. It could be another group.
That's right.
Yes, there are better, bigger, those who work faster, who have resources. All I'm saying is that it can be
Yes.
government to government, private to government. Yes, but
Yes.
the concept is there.
In other words, you know, the Department of Public Works and Highways is the department in charge of constructing, maintaining public highways throughout the nation. Why can't we compel the Department of Public Works and Highways to plant trees along the roads, you know, which they are maintaining or which they are constructing? Either way, whether maintenance or construction aspects of their work should be accompanied by the planting of trees. Now, Mr. President, there are also times when the Department of Public Works and Highways or even the MMDA would be, putting an island to divide the traffic going north and the traffic going south. In other words, obviously, the idea is to prevent unnecessary, crushing of traffic going this way and traffic going that way. Now, one good thing to do in the putting up of islands on national highways or even city byways is to insist that on the islands, trees can be planted, Mr. President, so that not only will the trees provide shade during daytime, but also they can sort of prevent the glaring of lights coming from the opposite traffic. Either way, Mr. President, help reduce anyway the glare of traffic lights during night time. And of course, as Your Honor pointed out, the planting of trees throughout the nation will minimize global warming.
And will minimize the use of electricity.
That's right,
Also,
and will capture...
no need for too much aircon for vehicles. It will be a cooler environment.
That's right. And then we know that from experience, Mr. President.
Yeah.
We're traveling, along a highway that is treeless. You find the heat of the sun quite bothersome. But if there are trees along the way, more or less...
and even your mood changes, hindi ba, Mr. President?
Yes, of course.
Mas romantic, hindi ba, Mr. President?
And then, I don't know about that. Anyway, Mr. President, the thing is that the more trees you have, you are not only, you might say, incidentally, there was an attempt, I think, by Senator Biason to show that the amount of pollution that we contribute is so minimal that probably, in effect, we should not contribute more to the greening of this of our country than what is demanded by the amount of pollution that we are producing. I'm not too sure that that is the equation. I am of the opinion that when you plant trees, regardless of the, you might say, the degree of pollution that you are contributing, in effect, you are diminishing carbon dioxide for the entire planet Earth, which in effect benefits you directly and also the rest of the world, for that matter, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. It is for personal interest and for humankind's interest, Mr. President.
Yes, and then, of course, there was a point raised by Senator Biason about, hopefully, I think he wanted to put on hold our switch to biofuels until we are self-sufficient in rice. Now, I'm not too sure that he equates, you might say, the switch to biofuels to, as intimately connected with our ability to produce rice. In other words, if we switch to biofuels, I would like to say that we are not necessarily prejudicing our ability to be self-sufficient in rice, because in the context of the proposals now pending in this body, we are talking about biofuels from sugarcane, not from rice fields, and from coconuts, not from, again, not from rice. And therefore, Mr. President, there is no necessary connection between our attempt to switch to biofuels and our capacity to feed our people. So I think we have to put that into the record so that there is no mistaking our intentions regarding this matter, Mr. President.
You are correct, Mr. President, that it is not necessarily a negation of our obligation to feed our people if we implement the Biofuels Act, which is good for the environment.
Yes, and so, Mr. President, let me end this brief intervention by saying that indeed we must have a commission on climate change because that is the need of the times. We cannot avoid that. And the example of Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar and the other typhoons in this country too are, manifestations that the idea of having a commission on climate change is an idea that should have been done yesterday. In any way, in any event, it's not too late yet, Mr. President.
Thank you for your